Well, good morning to you, Australia. Good evening to you, North America. It's that time again. A little bit of wheels off week for us. We're back at it. We're back at it, ready to rock and roll, ready to roll. The open in 3, 2, 1 for Talking Baseball Australia Live. Baseball's best mate. We're on the air now. Here we go.
It's Talking Baseball Australia. It's baseball updates you'll really love. The MLB and ABL news you want. With Paul Morgan and Dan Vaughn. It's baseball's best mate all year round. From the batter's box to the mound.
And with that, first off, I think I've got his mic unmuted. There we go. I do have it unmuted for you.
There we go.
Good morning to you, sir.
Very good morning, DV. What a time to be talking baseball, eh?
Yes. Before we go too far, first off, for you folks that don't know this, it is a special day. It's a big day in the Morgan household. It's your birthday, sir. Happy birthday, mate.
Thank you very much, DV. It's they say life begins at 40, DV. So let's see if they're true.
I've been dead for like 15 years then.
But actually, I woke up this morning like I've got the nose hurting, nose blocked, a little bit of a scratchy throat. I thought, boy, it's just wheels off already, folks. So life's going well. But thank you, DV. But
there you go. Happy birthday, mate.
It'll be a different one out of the ballpark tonight. So
yes, exciting. First off, what happened yesterday? We didn't do a show yesterday, which I do apologize for. This has been one of those weeks, I think, for both of us. But I mentioned and I put it on, and I'm going to put some more things on our Facebook page. I was in Kansas City for the relaunch of the Kansas City Monarchs. That was yesterday in Kansas City. I got back late last night and been scrambling to get game notes and stat packs done today, which for the broadcast crew, we'll have those tonight. We'll have those up on, at least the game notes will be up on our Facebook page in a few minutes after we're done here. But we usually do this on, the Friday, but it worked out for us because the Heat with this long, it seemed like the road to Dushanbe from Spies Like Us, they've been on the road for a while and finally coming home. Motley Crue's Home Sweet Home queuing up in the background as they show up. First time since the 30th of December, the longest franchise road trip, the longest ABL road trip, and the team is home. It's a Saturday night, so it all worked out great for us. Whew. We're all ready for baseball. Are the folks in the West ready, partner?
I'm going to be really interested tonight, DV, to see how the crowd is in terms of numbers-wise. I mean, as you said, I think the last time baseball was here was pre-Christmas. I think so, pre-Christmas. And look, it's sort of, like there's been a lot of, it's been the longest, as you say, not only the longest road trip, but then it's been the longest time between home series as well. So, look, I'd anticipate there'd be good crowds. Of course, it's a quasi long weekend here this weekend, the Australia Day public holiday on Tuesday. So most people take Monday off. So most people on a 4-day long weekend. So that might take a bit of crowd out though, DV, with a lot of people still sort of taking advantage of the 4-day long weekend. But we shall see. But look, I think a lot of people are really excited about this team. I've done a lot of different people's sports radio shows over the last week and a bit. I've been banging on about how good this rotation is, how good these arms are for the Heat, and but at the same time, DV, this is such an interesting series because I was doing a little prep for the series last night, and if you look back at the last 4 games for Adelaide and Perth, I mean, really, Adelaide have only been caught out on one big inning. Like they lost the series 3-1, but really 2 of those 3 losses were just a big inning that they kind of went totally wheels off. But outside of that, I mean, I'm so excited for when Mitch Newborn pitches for the Adelaide Giants this week. DV, of course, he was with the Heat last year, but and as you watched, you saw that game last week when they lost off a wild pitch in the end, the Giants, after Newborn's handiwork. So it's appetizing.
I had texted you it'd have been, that game was played over here It was in the evening, so it would have been the next morning, first thing in the morning for me. It'd have been an evening for you. But I texted him. I said, Mitch Nimborn, I mean, this guy, he looked phenomenal. And I'm thinking, boy, if you had him in a heat kit and you had him in that rotation, oh my gosh, you'd have every top arm in the league would be playing in the West. But it was a tough luck loss. Although I will say this, there's a little thing called speed. You know, you want it your center fielder, you want your middle infielders, you want some guys that can run the bases. They don't have to be burners, but run the bases. And it's the little things, and speed sometimes is a killer. And it was a killer in that ballgame. That was a difference because Jess Williams is aboard after he walks. He's got good wheels. He's able to get the second, able to on a wild pitch to second, ground ball moves him to third, and then the pressure on with the runner at third base, uncork a pass ball, and that's how the Heat wind up winning with Robbie Glendening at the plate, probably your best hitter in the series in Adelaide as far as the entire time. He had 7 RBI in that series of the 8 games. He's your guy at the plate. He winds up, I think, popping out to right, but the pass ball brings the run home. Wild pitch pass ball, but both set up because Jess Williams can run and that threat, and they were worried about that threat, and they were really, they were watching, looking over, and that set that thing up. So a 1-0 win, which in the grand scheme of things in the ABL, no team, now granted, I know Canberra's been on the road a lot in Melbourne, so they've got an argument here. Brisbane did travel to the hub, but they've also had the benefit of playing those hub games at home in Brisbane for that half hub. No team has had to endure what Perth had to endure in the ABL season with this home. They did not come home after that stretch in Melbourne. They went on to Brisbane, went on to Adelaide, and to come out 7-6, the goal in any season, I don't care if you're playing the big leagues or in the Sandlot, is to finish 500 or around 500 on the road. They finished a game above and very easily, partner, could have won 2 more ball games that had some late flameouts in the bullpen, which we'll talk about in a moment. But all in all, I think this puts the Heat in a great position. I think Melbourne obviously is in the best position with all those home games. I think Sydney has got work to do. Canberra has work to do. But this is a huge one for the both pecking order of the playoff seeding because Adelaide sits in second position. They just came off an 8-game homestand where they didn't win the series against the Heat at home. This is a huge situation for both ball clubs because you got to figure whoever wins this series has a really daggone good chance finishing second in the ladder. That's huge. So no team's been through what this Heat team's been through. And to come home 7-6, I think fans should be fired up. I think ABL fans should be like, oh, gosh, I don't want to face that team in the West.
Well, I agree, DV, and I think both, from an Adelaide perspective as well, I think they should be looking at it going again. Like if you dissect the last 4 games, as I say, those 3 losses they had that really, that if that pitch, there's an opportunity, that pass ball wild pitch doesn't happen, like there's an opportunity to go into deeper into that ball game. Secondly, like if you take out that total wheels off 9-run spot that I think they had one and the 11-0 win. And I think there's a 6-run spot in the 5 or 6-run spot in the other. Yep. If you take those out, I mean, Adelaide's pitching's been really good outside of that. The question mark I'd have for Adelaide coming to this series, though, Dan, is their offense has not scored a lot of runs against the Heat, and can they manufacture runs? That's probably the biggest question mark I'd have over Adelaide. I think their pitching will probably be okay. I think, but I just question whether they can generate enough offense.
And that's a good point. If you look at the tail of the tape, which is in our game notes for tonight, they'll be online here on our Facebook page in about an hour or so. Adelaide's 4th in the league in runs scored at 48. The Heat are 56. I'm sorry, are second with 56 teams, 56. But that difference really jumped out in this last 4 or 5 games. You go back to, let's say, Sunday when we put the game notes out on Sunday on the off day for Monday, that was a lot closer. But really over that whole series, that tail of that series, the Heat were, even though they generated the 1 run, it was a shutout. They've had 4 shutouts in the hub, and that matches last year's total. Now, yes, there's an asterisk by it because it is a shortened game. Those are 7-inning ball games. But the offense still generating enough runs where Adelaide, I thought, would be the better team offensively with their threat to steal bases. You look at that as well. They only have stolen 6 bases, good for 5th in the league. The Heat have lapped the field. They're leading the league with 16 stolen bases. I would have figured those two things would have been flipped to start the year, how would have, because Adelaide, you think of Aaron Whitefield, you think of, one of the best base runner in the league, right? Over year after year. Him not playing and missing him in that card, I think it really hurts their offense. But like you said, and I'll go back to the pitching numbers too, they got a 3.79 earned run average. That's good for third in the league, right behind the Heat. Well, everybody's behind the Heat, 2.10 for Perth. I mean, that is a dandy ERA. Melbourne, a 3.47. Then it's Adelaide to 3.79. And you got to go down to Canberra at 4.09. That's their fourth spots. The only team with a sub-3 earned run average is Perth. And then a couple of teams right in the mix. So, again, I would have probably said to you, in a normal season, speed, running, and offense would have been favored Adelaide and maybe slightly pitching. But, boy, it's all flipped. The Heat have built a phenomenal starting rotation, and their offense is it's not a begging offense. There are times it's a little pedestrian, but they do the little things. And case in point was that game on Tuesday night or Tuesday morning over here for you.
Yep.
Was the fact they were to manufacture a run and put the pressure on because of the speed factor. So I know that's a long-winded say of what I'm saying.
No,
but
I totally agree with you, DV, and I think that'll be the interesting. For me, the interesting part will be if the Heat offense gets into a bit of a funk. How do they adjust quicker than they probably have? And secondly, for Adelaide, like what do they do to generate? What do they do to generate runs? What do they do to generate pressure on the base path? Are they? They have got speed as well on their team. Like, do they start playing small ball? I think they've got to do something completely different because the sample size of those 4 games, DV, suggests that they're going to come into Perth, and if they do exactly what they've done, they're going to probably average at best 2 runs a game, and I'm just not sure that's going to be enough for them.
For the Heat, it'll be Unsworth the opener tonight. It'll be Sulzer on the a doubleheader game 1, where Saupold goes in game 2 of the double dip, and then on the Australia Eve or Australia Day, I guess it'd be Nathan Wiles will go. The OU Sooner will go in that rotation. I don't have Adelaide's. I've been trying to grab theirs. My presumption is it'll be Noonborn going in game with Samuel back because they have Beggs would be going against Sulzer, which would be a dandy matchup. I don't know who goes tonight for them, but I would think Beggs then Sulzer would be Beggs and Noonborn would be the doubleheader matchup with Sulzer and Saupold, I believe, but I can't confirm that. And if anybody out there was Adelaide knows, I'd love to hear from you. But I do know that we got that from Andy Kyle an hour ago. Unsworth getting the nod. Now, Unsworth got the save on Tuesday. That shows you how big of a game Andy Kyle felt that was for the ball club. You win that game, you go 7-6, you come home a game above. He put his best arm out there at the biggest time. And did you know, and this is something that you guys will only learn in our game notes today, that's not Unsworth's first save. It's his second save as a professional. This guy's thrown 192 professional ball games, only has 2 saves, one in Australia and one 2 years ago in Salt Lake City with the Salt Lake City Bees over the Las Vegas, whatever the area somethings they're called, I believe now. And he got a save, a 3-inning save in relief in AAA, the PCL. This is a guy that doesn't get called on, but that just shows you the versatility of this ball club. Hey, you know what? And I think it shows you also how important this game was. When he had you could have thrown out there, any of those guys that are in the back end of that bullpen could have come out and worked that inning, that one inning they needed to clean inning. But when you need a clean inning, difference between a 7-6 or 6-7, boom, he went to Unsworth. What'd you think about that move?
Yeah, look, I thought at first, oh, that's interesting, because I wasn't sure on his rest period. We haven't seen it happen before, but I think you're right, DV. That was a crucial game for the Heat because, as you said, there is a big difference, albeit not necessarily huge. There is a big difference coming back home with a winning percentage north of 500 and south of 500 because that just sets up an enormous. The tone of the game, the tone of the way that the team can believe in themselves is a lot different now. And they, of course, come in with 7-6, and they would have had, if it went reverse, DV, it would have been Adelaide out with 10-4 record, and that would have, that would have then meant they had to sweep this series just to get a legal pegging with Adelaide. Yeah. So now they give themselves the opportunity, as you talked about earlier in the show, DV. Like this is really a battle for that second at the moment. That second playoff spot. Brisbane probably aren't as strong as a lot of other teams. We saw Melbourne get the win last night over Brisbane. So you'd imagine right now as the Aces sit there at 12-5, I mean, they're probably getting into that area that they're, if they go on a bit of a winning streak again, Perth's best play realistically is to try to lock in that number 2 seed. They
Yeah.
can do that by sweeping the Giants this weekend.
No doubt about it. And the show is Talking Baseball Australia Live, baseball's best mate, a rare Saturday morning show, but
Yes.
we had to do it with moving around on a happy birthday day too. Let's shift over to the rest of the league. Melbourne 12-5, and I feel a little like I'm shortchanging them just a bit. I don't mean to. They obviously have done some really good things, and granted, it's been mostly against Canberra, but they've earned the 12-5 record. They're sitting atop the ladder. I think we pretty much knew they were going to be stacked regardless of the situation. My question is, what are we going to learn this weekend from Sydney and Canberra? And I think that was something that even the league even posed. Dave Penrose asked the question too. Last night I believe was a 9. I got that as a 9-3. They had 550 fans for a game they didn't know was going to happen until about 3 days ago. I think that's pretty good. Put it this way, they had more folks there than the average of the of the hub games. More home team. So that's a pretty good thing. But Sydney finally gets. We don't know anything about them, do we? Do we know anything about Sydney? We know more about Canberra, but shouldn't we find out something this weekend about them? I think there's going to be a lot of folks trying to figure out what exactly Sydney got going on.
Well, I agree with you, Dave. Sorry, I lost you for a minute there with the headphones as well. But no, I think with Sydney, like what have they got going on? But as it stands, Dave, they're in a playoff spot, and it's just like which is bizarre because they've only played 3 games. But look, I that was an interesting game. I caught a fair bit of it because I was really interested to watch more than anything. I was really interested to have a look at that Lismore facility as well. It's a facility, DV, that I guess I'm not sure why there's not more showcase games done out there. Having a look at it, I mean, it looked a nice facility. For I've never been there, but it looked looked like a nice facility. But there you go, Stuart. Might have lost your audio for a second. So
let me see if I'm still on. I'm still.
Oh no, there you're back.
I
thought it was me then. I thought I lost you. I thought something happened to me to lose you. But anyway, no, you're back on. So we missed your conversation about Sydney, DV.
Yeah, I was just saying what I mean. They've only played the 3 games, and they played 2. And we mentioned this last week on the game notes how it looked kind of strange for a team being 1-1 and being in the standings, but I think we'll learn a lot more because I don't know anything about them. I've watched that limited sample size, some of the game, the replay of the game today. I guess we're not going to learn a lot about them in the shortened season anyway. But I guess that was my question: is are we going to learn much? I think we kind of know Canberra is a little salty, and they seem to be a gritty club, so to speak. But what the heck do we know about Sydney? Was kind of my question. That was kind of my statement. But sorry about the audio there, folks. Maybe it's who knows? Maybe I left the audio in Kansas City. Who knows? But But again, let's just jump because we're going to kind of roll through this thing. Kind of keep this thing short today. The playoff format comes out, and in case you guys missed it, the Australian Baseball League has added 1 more week to the season. Now, usually, and you and I know this. How many Australia days have we spent together at the ballpark? I think like 4. That's kind of a tradition for us. We're at the ball yard on Australia Day. And that usually is the last series of the year. I went back through, and I believe 6 out of the last 7 years, this is the last series, usually the last home series for the Heat before either 1 more on the road or postseason play, depending on how the calendar falls. But we've got to add another 2 weeks to the season, basically. They got 1 more week next week, and then they've added another series in the back end, which to be determined in the postseason in some kind of hub, which is what we saw the league announce this week. Basically what it is, folks, we're adding time on the back end, but it's sort of a College World Series finals. If you ever seen the College World Series in Omaha, they do kind of a pool play, and it's double elimination. You win, you keep playing. Basically, you win and keep playing. But there comes a certain point after enough teams are eliminated you get to that Final Four, and you play a very similar type deal like this. You win, you move on to the winners bracket. Losers of the two other games got to play, and the winner of that game gets to kind of come back in and gets one more crack at it. It's a challenge for your pitching staff the way that it usually works out, because usually the team who wins gets the bonus off day to reset their pitching staff, and that's just looking at the schedule right now. That's kind of what I'm seeing. Is this? I know this is the last ditch effort. Is this? Your thoughts first of the postseason format in what you think it looks like.
Well, I think they've done the best with what they can, but I mean, where is it going to be? It's probably going to be in Brisbane, from what early indications suggest. I think it's going to be in Brisbane, but I mean, it's kind of one of those things that I feel like, because it's not the way it's normally done. If someone like, let's say Canberra, for argument's sake, let's say Canberra, who currently sit in what ranks? Canberra sit in the 4th seed at the moment.
Yep.
Let's say they come through and, I mean, they win 4 ball games in a row, 3 ball games in a row, win the Claxton Shield, and that's it. I mean, I think there'd be a lot of fans that would kind of be like, if Sydney sneak in and Sydney end up taking that 5 spot, they get hot and something like that. I think there'll be, regardless of what happens, unless it's probably Melbourne who win it, I think there'll be a lot of people going, well, is this the way that it should be or shouldn't be? But look, I think at the end of the day, you and I said the same thing, DV. It's a season that you've got to try something. I think it's great. I still think, and I said it last week on the show as well, I feel like you could have probably played the Team Spencer Cup this year, and maybe not the Claxton Shield. Kept that with the Aces. I feel like you still could have done something different this year. That's my thoughts. I think it could have been a really cool deal, the Team Spencer Hub or something like that. Or raising money for a charity or something. I think that part just could have been done a bit better. But at the end of the day, I just worry that if a team that's not really tracking, if the 5 seed wins the whole thing, I don't know, maybe it's maybe not, maybe loses its integrity a little bit. I think the Shield.
Yeah,
but
and I think that's where you and I agree, because I think we first saw this when I saw it on the plane up to Kansas City the other night. I was like, wait, okay, that's going to be series, right? Then I looked at the bracket again, and if you look at it closely, 4 and 5 seed play a wild card game on the 9th of Feb. And then the next, let's see here, it'll be the 12th. So they actually get that game, I'm assuming, is in the hub, I figure, but that's going to be the 12th is a Friday, and they'll play game 1, 2, 3. So you got game seed number 1, let's just say for argument's sake right now it's Melbourne, and they're going to play the wild card winner, which would be the 4 or 5, whichever that can be.
Yep.
And then seed number 2, let's say right now it's Adelaide, they're going to play the number 3 seed, which would be Perth. So that's a rematch of what we've been seeing the last. That's my concern. Perth and Adelaide may be playing.
Yeah.
But maybe playing. Well, they've already played 6 games so far. Another 4, perhaps 4 more. So you're looking at another 8, 14 matchups, and Perth will play Melbourne once, and this is kind of where I'm coming from. Now, granted, there's no way around it. But these are not series; these are one-time deals. So the winner of game 1, 2, and 3, I'm sorry, game 1 and 2, the losers play on the Saturday the 13th, and then the game 4. There's no off day for the winners in game 1 and 2. Those two play game 4. So here's my thing. So if you're the number 2 seed and you win, you play the number 1 seed in game 4. But if you lose, you're done. Is the way I'm reading it. Am I reading that correctly? So
that's what I. Yeah.
And then so winner of game 3, which would be the losers bracket, plays. Okay, I'm sorry. Loser game 3. It is a College World Series stuff. My bad. Totally put the brakes on that. If let's just say, for example, yes, you're going to get. It is the College World Series style. The losers bracket, you get one more shot. They drop you down from the winners bracket. That losers bracket, you get a chance to get back in that winners bracket. So it does work that way. But my point is. And I haven't seen the dust settle. We're one sneeze away from a series being canceled and borders being closed. So it'll be interesting to see what pundits say, because right now you and I are saying, well, I mean, Perth's probably going to play, Adelaide 16 times. And, Canberra's played, Melbourne, 12, 14 times. Yeah. So, but anyway, but
But I think and you raise a good point though. You raise a good point though, DV, because if look, if at the end of the day, if the hub is in Melbourne or Brisbane, like which I think it'll either be in Melbourne or Brisbane, I would have thought. You're right, because if there's a case that sort of creeps up or something, and WA all of a sudden shut their borders, like probably the Heat have got one or two choices to make. That they would have to send players who are probably US based players who then would leave from Melbourne back to the US. Or you're not going to send, your Tim Kennelly's, your Dan Schmitz, your local guys who come back for work. They're not going to quarantine them for 14 days. So it could well be that they don't even go to the postseason. And that sort of is I just think that was, for me, you had an opportunity a couple of weeks ago to maybe do a partnership with, a Lifeline, a Beyond Blue, a Team Spencer, something like that, do a final series for a different kind of cup, raise a bunch of money for an organisation that has probably needed it in 2020, and there's been we know all the things that have been going on in 2020, but I just thought there was probably a missed opportunity as opposed to kind of someone will win and then we'll give them the shield and so say all of us, which I don't know. I just think if it's not probably a team like I think probably if it's not Melbourne, Adelaide or Perth, I think then you kind of go, well, have the other teams won enough games to kind of win the shield? That's just my opinion anyway, DB.
Yeah, and I don't, and again, I don't see a real advantage as the one seed. I mean, you get to play Friday, you play Saturday, and you play 3 days in a row. Traditionally, when these kind of college formats happen, there is an off day mixed in for the winners. There's no way the calendar works that way. So basically, to win the Claxton Shield, if you're the number one seed, if you're Melbourne and you win 3 games, you win the whole thing. For Perth, it'd be the same case. Adelaide, same case. You win 3 games. Really for everybody, you got to win 3 games. 3 games are going to win it. If you're in the losers bracket, you lose the first game, but you can play 4 games. You go 3. You can go 3-1 and still win the thing. I mean, that's the thing about it. So, But again, I'm with you, and I don't want to beat the dead horse here. We'll talk more about it next week. We're kind of abbreviated here on the show on Talking Baseball Australia Live, baseball's best mate. But it's about opportunity, and I think there was a lot of great charities out there, and I think of Lismore as an example. And granted, this is all hindsight's 2020, but a caravan to Lismore with all the teams creating a huge baseball celebration. Folks come out, raise money for whatever.
Yep.
That's kind of what I'm thinking. And I'm gonna ask you, because I have an answer for this, and this may be controversial, but I don't believe we should pull punches here. How did you feel about we saw the entire hub in Adelaide? What were your thoughts? I'll give you mine, so I'm going to be fair here. I'll let you go first, but what were your thoughts overall on the Adelaide hub, and I guess on the back end of the Brisbane hub?
Look, like my biggest criticism of the Adelaide hub and probably the Brisbane hub as well is I don't understand why you're trying to play for a North American audience on a Monday when it's playoff NFL football to start with. Secondly, like if you don't have, it's great to have the video broadcast, which is great, but it's just, I mean, it's 8 o'clock in the morning in the West. You got people in the cars, you got people at work, like you just stick a little ear pod in or the headset in and listen to the ball game. But there's not that many people that can kind of just clock off for the day and watch the game of baseball on Monday, Tuesday. I didn't like the 8 o'clock games. I thought you were alienating local fans, and this is why this is where I think DV will be interesting to see how many people turn up to the Heat game tonight, because typically you've had, even if it was a 3-week road series, you've had the night games and people watch the games and love it. But all those 8 o'clock in the morning games, I mean, I think and you're also sort of, in a way, I just felt that you lost track of who was playing when, and then all of a sudden the Heat were playing and it was on. It was 8 o'clock, or the Giants were playing, and the crowds, DV, were questionable, at best for some of those games. So, and I don't know. I mean, did it do any benefit for the ABL in North America? I'm not sure it would have or not.
It doesn't hurt to have eyeballs watching the ABL. It doesn't hurt that the American Association is tweeting out, "Hey, watch the ABL." It was great for me personally. I was able to watch games at 6 o'clock as opposed to 4 in the morning where I'm beaten down. I can't tell you how many mistakes I make on game notes and tabulations because I'm freaking tired of being up all night. That's not, your body's not built that way. I don't care who works that shift. I worked that shift for a number of years in the nightclub industry, and that shift, even though I made great money, it sucked. It sucks being up all night and trying to function like a normal human being. So it's tough to ask those audiences. So I understand where those games are played in a North American friendly time zone. I get it. It worked. And I've been digging for the ratings. I can't find them. But let me offer a couple of things that I saw. This is what I do for a living. It's what you do for a living. I work in professional baseball. We've talked about this too. What on earth? What was the opportunity there? I guess is my thing. Well, the opportunity was to really create a big deal. You had Tourism South Australia was very involved. But when you looked at the game crowd, you're watching as a North American, you looked at the game crowd, I literally could count 7 folks behind on the plate. That's bad.
Yeah.
That looks bad. That's a bad visual. I'm not saying you're going to have the place packed. I'm not saying that. But, I mean, you're looking at that's a bad visual. I mean, we're looking at a crowd, and granted, they weren't friendly times for anyone. But you have crowds. I mean, Adelaide played in front of crowds. This is Adelaide's crowds that they played in front of in their home park. And this does disservice to Adelaide. If I'm the Adelaide Giants front office and I've got to sell tickets and merch and concessions and all that, this is not doing them a real good service either as a business in a COVID year. But let me just give you the crowd numbers. Here are your crowd numbers. Adelaide had 311. Let's see here, 711. 826, 999. They couldn't get one more in for the Heat game to get them 1,000. They had one crowd announced as one, but that had to be a misprint. 320, 475, 270, 274, and 555. I'm not being critical of the Adelaide front office. That's not their fault. They're given a fixture that says you're playing at this time, well, you got to do the best with it. Well, typically, now let me give you typically, the Kansas City Monarchs and the American Association will have a schedule come out next week. We'll know our game times. We'll start plugging them in. And we have a game time, let's say it's July 10th at 11 a.m. We're going to make the most of that opportunity. It gives us 6 or 5 months to prepare for that. How are we going to make that game a big deal? Business person special, summer camps for kids, whatever. Get people out there. We have all that leeway. They only gave the Adelaide Giants about a week's time to get anything. They knew the hub was coming. They knew that.
Yeah.
I mean, they knew that. But you need months in advance to get your schedule and your marketing team together to put folks in the stands. But that was a missed opportunity, I thought, promotions-wise. And you and I are promotions guys. We really believe in the minor league model here at Talking Baseball Australia, where getting folks in, having the gimmick, having the giveaway, having the fireworks, having the cheap beers, those opportunities were there. But you're looking at as an American audience, and I had a friend of mine message me too, actually, say, is that the crowds over there? I'm going, no, it's not always like that. Those games are being played really early in the morning. So I think you did yourself a disservice to the Adelaide front office. If I'm having to, put that money in the bank, I'm not real happy with the fact that I didn't get a chance to play 7 o'clock games or 6 o'clock games, whatever you want to call them, and get my promotions team out there to really rock it. That was a missed opportunity. And I feel for those folks. Because at the end of the day, yes, North America and I saw that. But how many of those folks can fly over right now and see a game? How many can go next year? Hell, I can't even go right now. It costs $14,000 to come over. And if you want to go next year, it's no guarantee you can go next year. There's no guarantee you're going to be able to travel to Australia as a North American. So, yeah, you get to watch some baseball, promote Australia, but at the same time, you're in a COVID situation, and you didn't do any service to help grow your game locally, and that's my concern. So I'm probably going to be the one that everybody's going to hate. They're all going to hate the Texan who's calling it out. But to me, their opportunity was there to really create that festival atmosphere. It's something you and I have talked about, and it wasn't there, mate. And that was my concern. So I feel bad about it. I feel bad for Adelaide.
I agree. I agree totally. And as I said, and I texted you so many times because I was, busy tied up in meetings and whatnot. Yeah. So many times. I mean, I did 2 or 3 different radio spots on Sport FM and Sport FM and a couple other radio stations this week. I hadn't seen a pitch for the game. I had to read the box score and hope for the best. I mean, because I just couldn't get there. And I agree with you, DB. Like, why would it's no point marketing to a North American audience right now when no one can come here. I mean, you know as well as I do. My wife is Canadian, and we have family in Canada, and we're desperate to go and, my brother-in-law, my wife's brother's had a baby, and we're desperate to go and see them and see the family over there, but we can't get to Canada either. I mean,
No,
they can't get here,
no,
so it's just like there's no
no.
point. It's
Nate, I'm a legal resident of Australia, and I got cleared to go, but I can't sell my house to come over. I mean, that's what it's going to cost. And you're trying to grow this game in North America when we don't know when these folks will be able to travel to Australia. Now, I think the concept's there. Don't get me wrong. But I think that it was great to have those games. But at the same time, we talk about opportunities. And I don't know where this lies at the feet of who. Are we just trying to get games on TV? Well, that's my question. Yeah. My question is this. And this is the question I'll ask this question when we get Cam Vale on, which we'll get to that in a moment, when we have him on one more time, an exit interview, so to speak. But if these game times were put up for North American TV, well, then who stands to benefit is my question. And if the teams are making money off this, then it's all good. Everybody's making dough at the bank. That's all good. But I'm under the understanding that these teams are losing money by not having folks in the games and all the restrictions. So that's my question. That's my concern. So again, I throw these all out there as the bad guy. I'm the bad guy.
I agree. No, David, I totally agree with you. And I even think, outside of that, I think where the missed opportunity was more than anything was the broadcast was a broadcast. And for me, it was just like, if I'm in the Adelaide hub, why are we not in an ad break or whatever? Why are we not doing a segment on wine? And I look, you do not have to be a sommelier to put a segment of wine together. You could send Todd Van Steensel, for argument's sake, you could spend Todd Van Steensel, Luke Wilkins, Tim Kennelly, and whoever, Travis Blackley out to a winery, and those three you could film a 2 minutes bit of those guys getting served Barossa Valley wine, and away they go, and promoting Barossa Valley wine. Like and how do you order it? If you're in the US, like you can now head to this website and order blah blah blah, take clips of the ticket from there, like promote your merch more. I just think that and I just think, and Stuart's right as well. I'm not sure that. I've seen some pretty average games so far, but
I mean,
and especially the team playing the doubleheader. I mean, like they're brutal.
Well, and that's the thing. We're gonna remember too, folks. These teams. I'm gonna put you in Lachlan Dale. We had Lachlan a few weeks ago. He puts together the roster for the Heat. Let's use him for example. Whatever baseball person puts it in, the roster together. They are putting the roster together. They're built for 4-game series over the course of a Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, or Friday doubleheader, Sunday, whatever. They're not built for 13-game road trips or 8-game hub series. They're not built for that. And they're sure as hell not built for doubleheader, off-day doubleheader. I can tell you this, and I told this to somebody in Kansas City yesterday. I can remember in the 2019 T-Bone season where the T-Bones had 2 doubleheaders in a week. And it was a struggle to get through those doubleheaders. We had 5 rainouts the early part of the year and wound up with 7 doubleheaders. And all it takes is 1 or 2 doubleheaders in a 10-day span. Your entire pitching staff screwed up for weeks as you're on a road trip and you're throwing out. I mean, literally throwing guys out there that that just throw them to the wolves. Yeah. I mean, it's a real mess. And so these teams weren't built for 13-game road trips and 8-game series. They weren't built for that. They were built for 4-game. That's why you really have 4 starters, really. You don't have 6 or 7, but the Heat had to dig in, and everybody had to dig in and throw guys out there. I mean, that probably wouldn't be starting, and that's a real handicap that I don't think people thought about competitively. So my answer to you, Stuart, is yes, that hurt the player right there because that's not what these teams are built for. They weren't built for a 8-game series.
And I'll be honest as well, we've seen a bunch of games that have just started to get, you get to the 6th inning, and you start going, oh, this game's starting to take an interesting turn, then the game's over. I mean, like all the 7-inning games as well, for me, DV, have just been, I don't know, I just feel that they just haven't had the same bite. And, that's what they mean. I think when the Heat got to the Adelaide, I remember looking when the Heat got to the Adelaide hub, I think they had 6 players under the old Mendoza line or something like that. So it's just, there you go, 24 hitters hitting under 214 at 300 or over. And that's, there has not been a lot of runs scored. And this, again, you talk about it, DV. I mean, if you talk about fan experience, I mean, if I like 1-0 ball games, but I mean tonight if they get 2,000 the game, or even last night a little bit like looking at that the Bandits game, a 4-3 final, which is kind of good, but like even Canberra Blue Sox last night. I mean, Canberra jumped out to 6-0 as they went to the third. I mean, how excited are the Lismore folk that have the Blue Sox jerseys when they're down 6-0 in the third? But
Sure. Yeah, Stuart, I think it's funny you mentioned that. I was doing the game notes a couple hours ago, and I was trying to find out some guys who were really trending hot besides Robbie Glendening with the 7 driven in the hub. There's a couple of guys who had some big games here and there, but the last 10 games for these teams, there's no one just jumping out at me going, gosh, that guy's on fire. I mean, except for pitching. Now, pitching's a different story. Guys like Sulser and Unsworth and Wiles have just been lights out. But outside of that, I agree that the numbers don't jump out at you. They don't really, jump out at you. Yeah, I think Stuart's onto something there. But you're playing. It's this year, and it's what it is. It's probably not as competitive as I thought it was going to be. But before we go here on this birthday edition for you, the news came down.
Roger as well. I'm glad that Roger. Sorry, by the way, Roger noticed my Saints T-shirt, the Mighty Saints Football Club. So
yes, I gave him a shout out, Roger. Good job there. Cam Vale stepped down this week. Well, he's stepping down, but a good mate of our show and a supporter of what we're doing. Cam will be around another, I believe, if I remember correctly, a couple more months. But he's stepping down. There's now a search on the way for a new CEO of Baseball Australia and the ABL. I think there's going to be this is going to be an interesting time, a transition time. Thoughts on that? I'll give you mine first, I guess. I think he's going to leave a really positive legacy in a lot of areas. I think this year would have been a tough year for anybody. I don't care if you dig up Connie Mack or Kennesaw Mountain Landis, whoever, to come run this thing this year. It was going to be any easier. And I think through all that, he's done the best he can. And what you got to remember too is that he doesn't just have to make the fans happy. He's got to make each individual ownership group happy, and that's a juggling act. I think overall, things considered, he leaves his league at least on the right foot forward. But it's going to be interesting to see what the next step is, because the next step could be very easily a step backwards. It's got to keep going forward. That's my thought.
I agree with you, DV, and I think, look, I think Cam's done when you look back at, it's very easy to be critical of people, very easy. But if you look back and you sort of go, look, there's the Geelong career sort of happened. We're probably privy to a bit of information around going what else is going on, which is great. Look, I think probably I think Cam probably put a little bit of pressure on himself when the Auckland Tuatara sort of pulled out, and probably it was a very strong response from Cam, and then when Tuatara sort of, when it proved that they were right, I think he always probably put a little bit of additional pressure on himself. But he's chosen to go and take a break. I'm with you, DV. I think who they get next is critical for this league, because you've got to deal. You've got to understand that you're dealing with eight owners, who are all very different in very different ways, plus trying to sort of build a national program, plus trying to make inroads into Japan and Taiwan, and try to replicate what you got in Geelong Korea. Plus you're trying to now you got the great deal with the American Association. There's opportunities to put a team into the US and things like that. For me, in my opinion, I would love to see somebody who has, you spring to mind, DV, but I know you're not necessarily going to do it, but somebody who has a deep understanding of baseball in general, but has probably spent a fair chunk of time in North America, but at the same time gets Asia baseball as well. So I think if you go and get someone like someone that's potentially been at an AFL club or something like that, I think you get a lot of experience. Like we know the Adelaide Giants. Like when the Adelaide Crows Football Club took over the Adelaide Giants, their revenue went north real quickly because they took stuff that they did in their sport and said, well, you guys aren't doing this as well as you could. And their revenue spiked enormously. So that's, for me, there's two schools of thought. I still think, and I still firmly believe that if you can get a really someone that understands North America really well, someone that understands Australian well, and kind of gets sort of the Asia to an extent, that's my candidate, DV. Maybe it's a just. I don't know. I don't know Justin Huber enough, but
right.
Maybe it's someone like him who has spent the time in the Aces front office, seemingly done a really good job of the Aces front office.
Yes, absolutely.
Has of course former big leaguer as well,
Sure.
so gets baseball in the US. Someone like, in my opinion, maybe it's time to go. Maybe it's someone like a Justin Huber that has done a little apprenticeship as a GM CEO, and but again, can unlock doors in the US as well. I think that's critical. I still believe that that the North America, and I've said this a long time, I still think North America is more critical to the ABL than Asia, and I strongly believe that because I think you can have an easier product going into North America. But that would be my take. Someone, potentially like I don't know how well he's done at Melbourne, but seemingly he's done okay from where my viewpoint. Is he ready? I don't know, but for me, Justin Huber would be someone that the board would have to have in consideration.
Yeah, I would think Justin Huber would be in that list because I have nothing but immense respect for him. Paul Gonzalez, who is now an Australian but grew up in Texas and played at a high level in both North America and Australia, been a member of the Australian silver medal team. Guys like that. I can even see this thing being a hybrid where you might have two folks step in. You may have one person as a CEO of Baseball Australia and a secondary person as the commissioner of the ABL. That might be where this thing might be more beneficial. I will say this. Is the league better off than they were when Cam? Absolutely. Cam Vale stepped in. I remember meeting with him his first year, right before nice to meet you. I'm heading back to the States a few years back. And I really got the impression he was on the right track. And I think of it, the open doors in Asia, in North America, expansion has happened, which I'm a firm believer in. We need more teams. I mean, granted, I think I've always thought 6 teams is ridiculous, that in a country that size, we should have more teams and more opportunities there. I'm even for more teams, and I want more teams, more games. He's been into that too, with possible ties to other, we talked about Taiwan possibly, Japan possibly, Korea's obviously been in there, the North American element, all that's been part of it. And I think, we're in a better place, but I think you're right because it's a lot like we talked about in 2014 when the Major League Baseball season opened in Sydney. Momentum. But the league didn't really capitalize then it kind of. No. And I think this is one of those situations too, where you're gonna get through a season of some sort. You're gonna get through it. You're gonna be good on you, mate, for getting through it. Yeah. You fought through it. Now let's go get things and grow this thing to the next level. Yeah. And Cam has put that foundation there, and it's gonna be very key. I agree with you. Stuart says, aside from we'll wrap this up here. Aside from game 1 of the recent home series, where the Aces fed. Yeah, averaging less than 3 runs a game. But runs are down overall. I haven't figured that yet, but because it's hard to figure because the teams had not played the same amount of games, not even close. Can we see a season where Adelaide-Melbourne game was a championship game in the first? It could be. I think that all comes down to this weekend, though. I think what happens in the West, if the Heat can. And let me ask you this, too, because I don't know for sure. Have they announced what will happen next week for the Heat, what they're going to be doing? Who they're going to be playing?
I believe, Melbourne is their scheduled team, so it's supposed to be Melbourne coming in for 4. I think if that can't happen, which the restrictions I believe just got listed for the Victorian border, so as long as this week's not a mess, we'll be fine. So it should be Melbourne next weekend for Perth, which that DV is about as good as it gets, in my opinion. Melbourne, Perth 4-game series. If you can watch them play 4, that would be.
I kind of think
that's almost better than the postseason.
I kind of think so too. A 4-game series, traditional ABL series this weekend with Adelaide, next week with Melbourne. Those 2 series, let's roll those 3 teams Probably let them go at it for about a week. Let's see who comes out standing. That would be fun to me. That'd be dandy baseball to me, even though I'm not a big Hub guy. But yeah, I agree with you. It was a bit of a fast forward show. I got a couple things I'll get at or let you go, as I know you're going to go and celebrate your birthday. But final thoughts on this series. Perth is coming home, and here's a weird thing. I thought about this one too. There's some imports that have only they played the exhibition games, but these are imports who spent more time away from the West. Who are suddenly going to get a chance to really experience what I think. Now, granted, we believe Canberra is the best in-game atmosphere, but no one draws, and there's no more energy in this country for baseball than in the West. On a good Saturday night game in the West, 2,500, 3,000 folks. They've been the attendance leader over the years for a reason. It'll be fun for those guys. I think that's the one real key difference. This could be the first time that any team besides Melbourne, those crowds have been great when they've had home games. This is going to be a true home field advantage, I think, for the Heat. I think that's a plus. So you think I'm going to tip them winning the series in close fashion due to the crowd. That's all the reason I'm going with the crowd.
Yeah, I agree. And DV, like maybe a chance for rain on Sunday for the first possible rain delay ever.
I'm gonna squint my ears. I'm gonna spit my ears there. Wait, what? You said rain?
Possible. I mean, there is a possible rain I think it probably will affect it too badly, but 20% chance of chance. As we know, we have never had a rain delay. And the 10 years of the Heat, never pulled it. I don't even know where the tarp is anymore. But
you guys know the story. I'll give you guys a little quick story. Did you know the tarp is actually, at one time, the tarp was actually behind the chain link fence at the play? You had to actually pick it up over the chain link to roll it out because they never used the tarp. It was just there. They had to have it. Major League Baseball had to have a tarp where the rules had to have one anyway. But they never used it. It was wrapped up. And I think when they finally unwrapped it, it was like ripped into holes and brown snakes and rats and everything else. And it didn't get pulled in the West. No, that's interesting.
Every time I see that, DV, every time I see that top there, I always think about when you made your come back to broadcasting. You come to Perth, you did a great job here, and then you got the opportunity at the Gary South Shore Railcats, who's number 2. And you had to pull tarp. And I remember just having a phone call with you, just absolutely not happy having to get out there.
There's no greater. That's the thing. Maybe the ABL commissioner or the new ABL head should have to pull tarp, because I think until you pulled tarp, I don't think you can really appreciate the great game that we work in. Because I mean, it's a rite of passage. I mean, it's funny because the guy I pulled tarp with my first year in '93 is now the VP of the King County Cougars. I mean, I can tell those relationships that I've had a long time by tarp pulling in baseball. If I pulled tarp with you in baseball, probably I've known you for a long time. It's a rite of passage. But yes, they'll be interesting to see though. But again, the rotation, as I mentioned, it'll be Unsworth tonight, and then Sulzer, Soppold, and Wiles. That is the 4-man going for Perth. Should be a good weekend of baseball. We'll be back on our normal schedule next week. We have a lot still to get to. I know we kind of touched the subjects here. We'll work on that. I just gotta get some sleep so I can get a little baseball in at wee hours in the morning. Game time in the West is?
I think it's 7 o'clock in the West, so that would be a 5 a.m. start for you, DV, and it'd be a 10 o'clock start in the East Coast. So it'll be by about that third inning, it's generally friends and family or any people in the West generally by that sort of third, fourth inning. So it's so join in the broadcast, send us a message on Twitter or Facebook or something, or whatever you want to do. And
where can we find the broadcast? Where can we find the broadcast?
It is on KO. It's on Fox Sports tonight. It's on KO as well. It's on I think it's over on a bunch of channels in the US, which I don't know. But I think more easily it's on Facebook and YouTube as well. So that's probably where most people still tune in from.
Your broadcast crew will be. Do we have a broadcast crew tonight? Do we know who's with you?
We have me, myself, and I right now, and probably Lachlan Dale. I think will be.
Lachlan Dale. We like that.
So I haven't convinced him yet, but he did a great job as a color guy last time. So I'll hopefully
he did. And again,
to come into.
He did.
But,
he did.
We'll see.
Hey, happy birthday to you! Happy birthday to you! Happy birthday! Mr. Morgan, enjoy the birthday with the kids. All right, enjoy it, mate. There you go. That's Paul Morgan. His birthday is today. Happy birthday, mate. He's 40. Life begins at 40, then I've been dead a while. So It's just before we close out, I want to give you guys a little something. I mentioned because we're on today as opposed to yesterday. I had a really great experience this week. Um, Something I've known about for a while. Of course, the Kansas City T-Bones is who I've been with since 2017 in North America. They went through a major rebrand this week. Now, I've known about this for a while, going back months, uh, but the T-Bones went away. It's now I'm now the voice of the Kansas City Monarchs. You heard that right, the Kansas City Monarchs. Exciting times. To give you guys a little history of the Monarchs name. First off, you have to know about baseball as it was played in North America in the prior to the 1960s. I mean, Jackie Robinson broke the color barrier, quote unquote, in the 1948. But for the most part, baseball was a segregated game. Well, not for the most part, it was a segregated game from really the early 1900s, 1910-ish onward. In 1920, Plessy versus Ferguson is an old case that created the separate but equal between the white and black population. So everything was separate but equal. So you had everything. And back in those days, 1920s, 30s, 40s, you had separate hotels, restaurants, whatever. That was what was going on in North America. A very dreadful time. And that was what the backdrop for Jackie Robinson playing in the big leagues and being signed by Branch Rickey and all that story that you've seen on 45. That being said, Jackie originally was signed by the Kansas City Monarchs, the old Negro League. And we just saw the passing of Hank Aaron. Hank Aaron passed away today, the home run king, a classy man who also fought segregation and fought to integrate baseball. It was a heck of a gentleman and a heck of a representation of that cause. And Hammer and Hank, who passed today, also a member of the Negro Leagues, played, of course, his career with the Braves, but he was also a very big part of the Negro Leagues. Well, the Negro Leagues it played throughout North America. There was several, and they were considered we mentioned this a couple weeks ago, that Major League Baseball now recognizes the Negro Leaguers as big leaguers. And throughout, Chicago, St. Louis, Kansas City, Cincinnati, Pittsburgh, you name it, New York, they had Negro League teams. And the best of the bunch, the quote-unquote New York Yankees of the bunch, would have been the Kansas City Monarchs. The Monarchs were founded in 1920. A man named J.L. Wilkinson, who brought them from Iowa. It was actually a team called All Nations. He brought a bunch of folks from. He had a team made up really of every possible nationality that barnstormed throughout the Midwest in the late 1900s or late 1910s, teens. There you go. Then in 1920, brought that team to Kansas City and became the Monarchs. What J.L. Wilkinson was a white owner in a all-black league. Initially, that was kind of met with some trepidation, as you can imagine, separate but equal. Suddenly, here's this white guy coming in and saying, "Hey, I'm the owner of this team. We want to play in the league." But the team was made of all black players. That's kind of a nutshell story. The Negro Leagues Baseball Museum is in Kansas City, 18th and Vine District down in Kansas City, a whole old historic district. It's where the Negro Leagues were born. There's an old YMCA that's around the corner on the Paseo, which is a drive there in Kansas City. That's where the original Negro Leagues were actually founded, in that YMCA. And around the corner is where this location is. Also, the National Jazz Museum is the two building. The building is shared by, one side is the Negro Leagues Baseball Museum. The other side is a jazz museum. It's a great destination. It's a great day. Morning for jazz, afternoon for baseball, vice versa. It's a really great museum. I say all this because that's the backdrop in Kansas City. Now, you've probably seen the Monarch gear. You've seen the KC Hearts, all that. It is a historic brand. And the Negro Leagues and the Kansas City ownership of the minor league team reached an agreement this week to rebrand the old T-Bones, the Kansas City Monarchs. The Monarchs reign again, as we're saying. And Mark Brandmeier, who's the new owner of the Kansas City Ball Club, along with Bob Kendrick, who's the chairman of the Negro Leagues Baseball Museum, had a major announcement yesterday in Kansas City. And one of the coolest things I've been involved with in my career, and that includes championship and no-hitters and all that, and even broadcasting overseas, this was a highlight because all the two TV stations were out in Kansas City. It was live on one of the local affiliates. Mind you, this is all going on in the backdrop yesterday will Patrick Mahomes play Sunday or not with the Chiefs? You watch your NFL, you know that Patrick Mahomes was injured in the ball game last Sunday against the Browns. There was some concern if he'd play or not. He passed the protocol. He will play this Sunday against Buffalo for a chance to go to the Super Bowl. But that was the big, everybody was waiting around for that yesterday. But in that big news day, boom, this thing hit, and the Kansas City Star had it. All the affiliates had it. It was on ESPN. It was a big, big deal. And we kept this thing under wraps for a couple of months. But I am proud and very excited to announce that I'm the voice of the Kansas City Monarchs. It's a brand that's reborn again. It's a monumental brand. Of all the brands in minor league baseball to be a part of, this would be equivalent to all of a sudden the New York Yankees signing off on the Sydney Blue Sox to be called the Sydney Yankees. I mean, that'd be kind of sort of like that. This is a big deal. As a matter of fact, the more successful than the Yankees over the years. In 30 seasons, they had one losing season. One losing season. It's a phenomenal story. And J.L. Wilkinson was their founder, and the Negro Leagues in general. Did you know, and I'll give you this next week a bit, but did you know things like the first light games under lights didn't happen in Major League Baseball? The Negro Leagues played under lights. We're going to go through that a little bit in our Did You Know section down the line. I'll give you more about that. But there's a lot of exciting history, so I'm very excited. I want to give you guys this quickly and show it to you as well. This is the launch video that happened yesterday. This is our new promotional video for the Kansas City Monarchs. Let me bring this down here too so you guys can see this here on Baseball's Best Mate. There we go. I want you guys to see this and check it out. Here we go. This is a Reign Reborn.
Bullet Rogan, Jose Mendez, Cool Papa Bell, Willard Brown, Andy Cooper, Hilton Smith, Turkey Stearns, Connie Johnson, Satchel Paige, Jackie Robinson, Ernie Banks, Buck O'Neill. Ball players, each of them, each among the best of their time. But beyond baseball, each was a trailblazer, each a courageous pioneer, each a part of a movement. We've come so far these 100 years, and yet there are more trails to be blazed. But over these 100 years, some things are still as true and pure as ever. A curveball is still hard to hit. A tie goes to the runner, and courage, heart, and a little grit goes a long way. As the Negro Leagues Baseball Museum celebrates its centennial, honoring the past, paying respect to those trailblazers, and saluting those who ran these bases before us, we invite you to celebrate the legacy of Kansas City baseball for these next 100 years. A future of unity, a future of movement, a future in need of a new song. But on opening day of 2021, we'll take the field for the first time in those pinstripes as the Kansas City Monarchs. We tip our caps to you in reverence and honor of the past and in anticipation of the future. See you at the ballpark. Go Monarchs!
Really cool stuff there. That is right there, the video from Kansas City. Yes, and yeah, that was cool. It was great. Here's the logo right there. I'll show you guys here as we close it out there. But come on in there. Thank you very much. But right there, should hand me that. Thank you very much. Thank you. That's what I was looking for. Thank you, Caroline. I was going to show you guys this because somebody's going to ask, and so you guys will see it. This is what the uniform jersey, one of them will look like coming up this season in Kansas City. I just thought I'd show this to you. Thank you, Caroline. This is what it will look like. Let me bring this down for you guys. This is what it will look like. There we go. How about that? Got the number in the back. There we go. How about that? But that is what you'll be seeing. The Monarchs wearing there, and that's going to be exciting. What's really cool about it, there's going to be a pop-up museum. There's so many things to talk about this. I encourage you guys to go to the Kansas City Monarchs page. If you want to type in T-Bones, that's fine. It'll take you to the Monarchs page. The website's there. There's merchandise there as well. It's exciting. I think it's really, really cool, and I'm very proud to be a part of it, and I'm excited. I mean, it gives me goosebumps thinking about it and seeing that right there. I mean, I never would have thought in my time as a broadcaster that something like this would happen. So it's very exciting to be part of it. And Talking Baseball Australia will be working in step by step with the Monarchs. As you know, we've always been very association friendly, and much more so now with the Monarchs name and all that. So it's very exciting. But anyway, just wanted to throw that out to you guys. And again, a lot more about that. There was a Facebook Live we did yesterday from the museum that's all very, very informative, and with Mark Brandmeyer, the owner, and Morgan Kalinda, the marketing director, and others. But I encourage you guys to check that out. But again, I'm very excited, and I think it's a very cool deal to be a part of the Kansas City Monarchs family. So all good. Recapping the show. First off, happy birthday to my broadcast partner, Paul Morgan. Perth and the Adelaide Giants beginning in, let's see here. It's 8 o'clock, so it was 8 hours or so away. And it'll be Dylan Unsworth for the starting nod today for the Heat. A couple of notes to pass along to you are on the game notes, but one of them I want to mention to you. We're counting down. Tim Cannelli's got 4 more hits to go to the 400 hit mark. That'd be the first player to reach that milestone. There's also some other game notes there as well. Those game notes will be up shortly on our Facebook page. You can link to those, download them as you see fit, print them up, whatever, and hope you'll enjoy the Talking Baseball Australia Baseball's Best Mate game notes for our broadcast. A big thanks to Paul Morgan for joining me on the show. Happy birthday to you, mate. Everybody else out there, I know it was a little bit haphazard. We kind of threw this thing together, not our normal day, but we're back to our normal time next week at this normal time, which is normally a Friday morning in the West. It's 7 a.m. in the West, 5 o'clock Central Daylight Time, Thursday in North America. We will come your way next week on Talking Baseball Australia Live. Baseball's best, mate. I say it every time. Let's be better tomorrow than we were today. Let's be better fans of the Giants and the Blue Sox and the Cavs and the Bandits and the Aces and the Heat and Geelong, Korea, and Auckland, all those teams. Let's be better fans tomorrow than we were today. Let's be better fans of the league tomorrow than we were today. And most of all, let's show more love and empathy worldwide. Hashtag much love. I love you guys. Hope you guys have a great weekend. Enjoy your baseball wherever you are. Hope you folks in Lismore are enjoying this taste of the ABL as well. Best to you. And go Talking Baseball Australia Live. And go Monarchs. We'll see you next week on Talking Baseball Australia Live. Baseball's best mate. Roll the close, everybody.
Buy me some peanuts and Cracker Jacks. I don't care if I ever get back for its fruit.